I'd like to talk about how we measure the distance between notes. So we use a term called intervals. Intervals basically means what is the distance from one note to another. And we measure these distances with half steps and whole steps. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to kind of work you through the idea of intervals and show you two different ways that I measure intervals, something called the general interval and the second called the specific interval. And by doing this, we're going to be able to start to build a language where we can talk about how to build chords, the relationships of different pitches to one another, and it opens up all kinds of doors for composition and for analysis of music. So I like to talk about the two different ways of measuring intervals. The first way is something I call the general interval. So we have a piano in front of us, middle C, C4. Let's look at just the white keys. And you'll see the wheel with just the natural letter names, no sharps, no flats. So let's just start on middle C, C4. If I start to count the distance from C to the next closest white key, D, if I count starting on the first note, C being my first note, D being my second note, I can say that the distance from C to D is the general interval of a second. 1, 2, a second. If I do the same thing and go to E, C is 1, D is 2, E is 3. The distance from C to E is a general interval of a third. To F, 1, 2, 3, 4, a fourth. From C to F is a fourth. From C to G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is a fifth. C to G is a fifth. From C to A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. From C to A, the general interval is a sixth. From C to B is a seventh. And the general interval from C to C is 8, or an octave. So the general interval deals with just letter names. When we start to talk about the specific interval, we're going to be dealing with half steps and whole steps. So now let's talk about figuring out the specific interval. And again, the specific interval is now going to deal with half steps and whole steps. So I'm going to go ahead and put up the wheel that now has all half steps and whole steps with all of our sharps and flats. So you'll notice that if I start on C, if I go one half step, I'm going to the next key that is to the right or higher in pitch than the starting note. This note is C sharp or D flat. To be an interval of a second, we go back to our general interval, which is a second, C to D. So we're going to call it D flat. The second that has one half step is something that we call a minor second. So from C to D flat is a minor second. From C to D is a second, the general interval. The specific interval is 1, 2 half steps. The distance of 2 half steps gives us a major second from C to D, a major second. The next note, from C to E flat. So we know that the general interval from C to E is a third. If we count half steps, C to C sharp is 1, to D is 2, to E flat is 3. The interval that has 3 half steps is a minor third, a minor third. From C to E is 4 half steps, 1, 2, 3, 4. The interval that is 4 half steps is a major third. The general interval from C to E is a third. 4 half steps makes it a major third. From C to F, the general interval is a fourth. C, D, E, F, 4 notes. If we count half steps, there are 5 half steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The interval that has 5 half steps is something called a perfect fourth. A perfect fourth. Now I'm going to skip the next sharp flat note and go straight to C to G. C, D, E, F, G. The general interval is a fifth. If we count half steps, there are 7 half steps, which gives us a perfect fifth. Now, let's address this note between F and G. F sharp, G flat. This note and the note that is 6 half steps apart is something we call a tritone. The tritone can be called an F sharp, which would make it an augmented fourth, a fourth that has been stretched 1 note larger than perfect, or a fifth that has been diminished, shortened by 1 half step. It is 6 half steps. We call it a tritone, or more specifically, an augmented fourth or a diminished fifth. Let's continue. The general interval from C to A is a sixth. From C to A flat is something we call a minor sixth. It is 8 half steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 half steps gives us a minor sixth. From C to A is 9 half steps, a major sixth. From C to B flat is 10 half steps, a minor seventh. The general interval is a seventh. We have 10 half steps, which makes it a minor seventh. From C to B is 11 half steps, a major seventh. The general interval is a seventh. We count half steps, a major seventh. And lastly, from C to C, 12 half steps, a perfect octave. You can apply this to any key. And you can start on any pitch. So for example, you could say, I'm going to start on E. From E to F, the general interval is a second, E to F. The number of half steps is 1 half step. The type of second that has 1 half step is a minor second. From E to F sharp is a second. E to F is the general interval. There are 2 half steps, E to F to F sharp, major second, and so on. The best way to think about this is to practice running it starting on pitches and count out your general interval, that's based on letter names, and then count half steps based on the wheel with sharps and flats or the keyboard. I hope this has helped and opens up the world of intervals to you, which will help us to build chords and to understand the relationships that notes in scales have at a deeper level.